We are podcasters, bloggers, YouTubers, influencers united to condemn the tragic murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and so many others at the hands of the police. This is a continuation of racism pervasive in our country since its inception, and we are committed to standing against racism in all of its forms. We believe that to be silent is to be complicit. We believe that Black Lives Matter. We believe that Black lives are more important than property. We believe that we have a responsibility to use our platforms to speak out against this injustice whenever and wherever we are witness to it. If you would like to do your part, I will have links on my website to donate to the George Floyd Memorial Fund, the Minnesota Freedom Fund, and many other organizations that are for promoting this cause. How has your 2020 race schedule panned out? Races canceled, postponed? Are you still waiting for a refund? Let's talk all things racing that went down in the past week. Hey Wave Nation, and welcome back to another episode of the Run Wave Podcast. I am your host Kim, and today we are talking all things racing in 2020. Okay, so before I get started on all things racing in 2020, I just want to talk about this little elephant in the room here, my little boo-boo on my shoulder. If you're listening to this at home, you can't see it, but if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. So on June 1st, before June 1st, but I decided that I was going to run 100 miles in June. So what that would entail for me is running about 5 miles a day. So I started out on June 1st and I actually ran 4.5 miles, I believe, because when I started out on the run, I did my usual route, and when I turned around at 2.25, I thought in my head, having a blonde moment, that this 2.25 turnaround will get me to 5 miles. But of course I was wrong because I was off by a half a mile. So on Tuesday, I decided that I would make up that half a mile and run 5.5 miles on Tuesday. So I took a different route to get that extra half a mile that I needed. And when I was running, I was 1.2 miles into my run, and I was just looking forward. I wasn't paying attention to the ground, and I fell, and more than fell, I tripped and I slid. So my shoulder, I must have landed down on the right shoulder and the left knee, because my left knee is all busted up. My right shoulder is all busted up. I mean, you can see the bandage. I have to put 3 small bandages to cover the wound. But it even hurts still to lift my arm up and to rotate it, but it's actually feeling much better than it was. I also hurt my hands. I don't know if you can see that. Both hands have war wounds on them, but I mean, I definitely learned my lesson. If I'm going to take a new route, I need to pay attention to my surroundings. I was just having a good day. I was running, the weather was nice, and I was just going. And I mean, it really sucks to fall. I've been running since 2012, and this is the very first time that I actually took a spill. And when I fell, I was looking around for somebody to drive by, for a police car to drive by, somebody to help me, because when I got up, I was actually dazed, and I felt the pain in my knee and I felt the pain in my shoulder, and I looked over and my shirt was actually torn, and I couldn't see what lied underneath, but I can feel that it was bleeding and it was hurting, and I was just praying for somebody to drive by so I could ask them to drive me home. I would have asked a stranger to drive me home, but there's nobody out these days. So there was no one out, and I just limped my little butt back home for a little over a half a mile, and I've been resting ever since. So that was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday I'm gonna try to get out and do a little something, because I can't be making up all these miles at the end of June, but we'll see. I'm not on track, but I'm gonna get back on track to running my 100 miles of June. Okay, so on to today's topic, racing. Now, on May 28th, it was announced that the Boston Marathon was canceled. Now, I don't know who was surprised about this, but I surely was not surprised, because Boston actually announced earlier in the month that all major events through Labor Day, which is September 7th, were canceled, and the Boston Marathon was scheduled for a week after that, September 14th. So it was just highly unlikely that you canceled all events through Labor Day, but the Boston Marathon with thousands of people, 30,000, 35,000, I don't know the exact number, but it was highly unlikely that that event would go on with that number of people. So I wasn't surprised that it was canceled. It wasn't a matter of if it would be canceled, it was a matter of when it would be canceled. Now, if you were registered for Boston, you do have a few options. Number one, everyone is receiving a refund. Now, that is incredibly generous, because there are a lot of racers that are keeping people's monies, whether the race was canceled, postponed, virtual, whatever. They are keeping all the money. So kudos to the organizers of the Boston Marathon for giving everybody a refund, because some of us have just not been so lucky. Another option is they are offering a virtual Boston Marathon. Now, the virtual can be run between September 7th and 14th, and it will come with a fee. They will also have a series of virtual events throughout that week as well. They haven't announced what those virtual events are, so make sure you keep a lookout for those. Now, if you are going to be participating in the virtual Boston Marathon, y'all know I don't like virtual races, but if you like virtual races and you plan to participate, the 26.2 miles has to be run over 6 hours. So you have 6 hours to complete your race, and you have to provide proof of timing to the BAA. And all athletes who complete the race will receive an official Boston Marathon program, a participant t-shirt, a medal, and a runner's bib. Now, I'm not sure why they would send bibs out after you complete the race. I'm not sure what the point of that is. Usually you get your bib before the race. So I think they need to revise that option. Even just sending a digital bib that people can print out and wear while they are running would be better than receiving a bib after the race. That would be pretty useless at that point. If you were registered for the BAA 5K, you will also receive a refund. Lucky you. I'm laughing because I have so many friends, including myself, that have registered for races, and we've received nothing. I mean, the only other race that I was registered for was Seattle Rock and Roll, which was the first. It was this weekend coming up, 3rd, 4th. What's today's date? Let me see. Yeah, it was this weekend, and they said that the race is postponed, but we've been giving no other information. So no new date, no mention of a refund, nothing. They just said it's postponed, and that's it. So I don't know what's going on with Rock and Roll, but they need to tell us something soon, or I'm about to go on a rampage. For you smart Alex out there, if you thought that you would run the virtual Boston Marathon and get an Abbott star, that's not happening, unfortunately. Abbott released a statement pretty much right away after Boston announced cancellation, saying that you would not receive a star or credit towards your 6-star quest if you run the Boston Marathon virtually. So you may get a t-shirt, you may get a medal, but you will not get a star for completing the virtual Boston Marathon. There are two kickers with this. Runners can use their 2020 BQ qualifying time to enter the 2021 race. Now, it doesn't say that you had to be registered for the 2020 race, so I think even if you qualified and you didn't get in, you can use your qualifying time to enter the 2021 race, and maybe you'll get in this time. So I highly encourage you, if you did not get in, because there's so many people that are applying to get in, and the times are tight and the slots are tight. So if you applied and didn't get in, apply again this year with your 2020 time and see if you can get in this time. So I think that's actually a good thing. It gives people another shot at getting into the race. It gives people a chance that were running the race to run the race again, hopefully. And I mean, it's just a good, I personally think that they should have just rolled everyone over. That would have been the nice thing to do. Just roll everyone over. I mean, why must we go through this process again? If you would just roll everyone over, everyone would be happy. Well, except the people that ran a qualifying time and were hoping to apply to get into the next race. But hopefully you can still get in. You might boot some people out, but who knows? The other kicker is charity runners. Now, this is what Boston Marathon says on their website, verbatim. Questions about fundraising deadlines and timelines should be directed to the manager of the charity team with which you are affiliated. Now, what this means is that it is up to your charity to either to give you a spot for next year or not. So if you were done fundraising for this year and your charity says we're not giving away spots for next year, you have to fundraise again, that's what you'll have to do. You're at the mercy of the charity, which I don't think is really fair. I mean, I think that these races should just automatically roll everyone over, charity or not. It's just not fair. In Boston, okay, listen, the minimum fundraising for Boston is $5,000. Most charities are way more than $5,000. They are like $7,500 to $10,000. I've even seen $12,000 minimums for charity. So it is not cheap to get into Boston via charity. And raising money for charity is hard work. I mean, I know we're supposed to do this out of the goodness of our heart, and the charities need the money, but it is hard work raising money for charity, especially at those amounts. And some people, if you're not a runner, people just don't understand why we are raising money to run these races for charity. I mean, some people think that the money goes to us, that is paying for our race, our travel, our expenses. And although we try to explain that the money is going to charity, we still have to pay for everything. People don't get that, and some people just don't like to donate. So a lot of people self-fund their charities. I mean, I fundraised for the London Marathon, and I think my fundraising minimum was 22. It was 1,700 pounds. I think that came up to like $2,200 dollars, and it was hard. I mean, I had to like hustle to get that money. People weren't just giving away money, and the donation amounts are small. They're like $20-$25. So imagine how many donors you need to come up with that money. And when those amounts are in the 5, 7, 10, 12 thousands, that is a lot of hustling that you have to do. So for charities to say, oh, well, we have your money and we don't have a spot for you next year, I think that is just wrong. I want to read to you some of the chatter that I've been seeing in groups online on Facebook on what people have been saying about their charity entries. So one person said, I would have been okay with raising an additional 50% for my charity, But they emailed me yesterday and said they want 125% of this year's amount for 2021 entry. The charity runners are shouldering the entire burden. So this charity in particular, they want 125% more of what the person raised last year, which, I mean, God, I know charities are suffering. Their bottom lines are hurting. Everyone's bottom lines are hurting. But to raise your minimum fundraising that much, it's like, it's crazy. Now, another person said, in my case, they told me that they can't guarantee me a spot for next year's race. They don't know if they're getting any bids for next year, but they will roll over what I fundraised for this year should I apply to run with them again. Of course, they haven't told me what the new minimum would be. So Boston has a certain amount of spots for time qualifiers. Last year it was 24,127 spots out of 31,500 spots. So about 7,000 charity spots. So how about Boston decrease the amount of spots for time qualifiers and increase the amount of spots for charities so charities can roll people over from the previous year and get new runners in to fundraise to help them meet their goals for the next year. I mean, that seems like the right thing to do, Boston, doesn't it? It does to me. Boston is supposed to release more information going forward. I just hope that they do the right thing by all of their runners, especially charity runners, because a lot of charity runners have put in a lot of time and effort into fundraising, and for them to have to fundraise all over again, it's just wrong, and it's not fair to runners to have to do that. And you know what, going forward, we need to put, if this is what is happening this year, we need to put our foot down and stop supporting these freaking charities. I mean, shit, I want a 6-star medal just like everyone else, but I don't want to have to raise $15,000 to get it and then have no guarantee of actually running my race, because something like this can happen again. We never know. These cancellations can happen. This came out of nowhere. This can happen at the drop of a dime. So there needs to be something in place to protect charity runners, because yes, we're doing this out of the goodness of our heart, but we're doing this because we want to run the freaking race. Period. Now, there have been more cancellations. Boston was just like one of the big ones this year, but the Big Sur International Marathon in California has been canceled. That was November 15th. The Dublin Marathon in Ireland has been canceled. That was October 25th. They had a field size of 25,000 people. The Cardiff Marathon was postponed to March 2021. Now, it was scheduled for October 4th, the same day that the rescheduled London Marathon is scheduled for. So that should be interesting to see what the London Marathon is going to do. Cardiff is in Wales. It's in the UK as well. The Belfast Marathon has also been canceled. Now, it was originally scheduled to take place on May 3rd, and then it was rescheduled to take place on September 30th and ultimately canceled. Now, the good thing about the Belfast Marathon, and if you're into running international marathons, you might want to add this one to your list. They are deferring all entries to 2021, which is really nice of them. And if you don't want to run 2021, they're even considering deferring you to 2022 or 23, whichever one that you choose. There are a few big races that are still scheduled to go right now. First, we have the Marine Corps Marathon. That's in Virginia. It's scheduled for October 25th, and they have a field size of about 30,000 people. The San Francisco Marathon in Cali, that's November 15th. It was postponed from July 26th, and they have a field size of 27,500 people. Also still on the schedule is the Chicago Marathon on October 11th, and they have a field size of 45,000 people. Now, if you remember, the Chicago Marathon offered like 2 months ago, either a refund of your race fee or a deferment to 2021, but they keep your race fee and you have to pay your registration fee again. So shame on you, Chicago Marathon, but I understand that they're out for their bottom line as well, but just roll freaking people over. Why do you need to keep people's money, especially this far in advance? It just pisses me off, and God, it makes me not want to support these races. So also, New York City Marathon is still on the schedule, but New York City is my hometown, and I'm hoping New York Road Runners does the right thing. They have been doing it for their previous race cancellations. They've been giving either a refund or they've been giving a deferment to the next year with paying for the race again, which sucks, but at least they're giving the option of a refund. 2020 has just been an absolutely crazy year. We're still going through COVID-19. We have the death of Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia. We have the brutal murder of George Floyd by the police in Minnesota. Then you have the murder of Breonna Taylor by the police. I mean, I just don't know how much more of this that we can take. We're hurting in our pockets. We're hurting politically. 2020 has just been a hard year, and we're only halfway through it. So I'm gonna end this show here. It is voting season. We're back in voting season. So if you are registered to vote, which you should be, make sure that you're being knowledgeable of your polling dates. You know where your polls are. If you are absentee voting, I know I got an absentee application in the mail the week before last. I sent that in, so I'm going to absentee vote myself this year, so I don't have to wait on long lines. But if you're absentee voting, make sure you get those applications in. I think the deadline is this week to get those in, and just make sure that we vote. We show up to the polls so that we can get the elected officials that we need into office. I know I went on a political tangent here, but I mean, it's just needed. So make sure that you get out and vote. I hope you guys enjoy this show, and I will see you on the next one. Later. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Be sure to subscribe to The Run Wave on your favorite podcast app and leave us a review of the show on Apple Podcasts. It would really help me out. If you are a runner that has a story to tell and you would like to be on the show, you can email hello@therunwave.com or send us a DM on Instagram to The Run Wave. See you next time.